There were really people that were saying, I'm going to report her to the Dutch authorities.
The rise of the finfluencer. Now, finfluencers are social media influencers that focus their platforms on investing and financial content.
Emma Mouthaan.
Emma, gespierde student.
You have this realization moment that you took out debt. What was that part like when you realized?
Oh my God, the approximately 1,000 euros that I got as a loan every month has now turned into more than 60,000 euros of debt in total.
Maybe an extreme hypothetical, but do you think that would be the same if you were a guy?
Person was also like, oh, you know what? Why don't we just find out where she lives and, go and pay her a visit? Well, I can go into conspiracy theories now.
Emma, thanks first of all for taking the time today to talk with me.
Of course.
I'm very excited about this conversation. I start all my podcasts with the same question because usually it establishes how the rest of the conversation is going to continue.
Okay.
And that question is, are you happy?
Yes.
What, in your opinion, is required to live a happy life?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I would say for me, at least, a certain security. So that would be financial, health-wise, but also relationship-wise, as in friends, mostly. But yeah, I think security for me personally, at least, is pretty important to be happy. And from a certain kind of security, you can then start to grow.
Mm-hmm. It reflects quite much, I think, also what you're trying to build at the moment, community-wise. How would you describe your passion?
Well, you mean with Skere Student or?
That's what I would be aiming at, but if something else comes to mind, feel.
Well, I would say to spread knowledge about financial things, basically. And especially to reach students with that information, because I feel like right now a lot of students just don't really know anything about personal finance. And I think that really hurts them, especially in the long run.
Why is this mission so important to you?
Well, because I was confronted with the lack of knowledge about personal finance myself, actually, when I was younger. And I made some stupid financial mistakes because of that. And,
such as?
Well, student debt. Yeah. I got a loan from the Dutch government to basically, pay for my studies and all the costs that are associated with studying. But when I took out that loan, I had just turned 18 and I just didn't really know anything about, financial stuff, like about personal finance, but also the implications of taking out such a loan. Also, what kind of debt I would then end up with at the end of my study career. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like, okay, I just turned 18. I'm going to go studying. I know I can't afford to pay for this study without taking out a loan. So, I'll just take out whatever they give me. And that was maybe not so smart.
It sounds very familiar, at least. I did the exact same. So, so you realize you have this realization moment that you took out debt.
Mm-hmm.
What was that part like when you realized, oh, I did something here which I'm not so sure? How did that all of a sudden change then?
Well, it was very stressful. It was a very stressful moment because at that time I was actually having health problems. And because of those health problems, I had to arrange some things for my study and also for the loan that I took out. And it was actually only at that point that I realized, oh my God, the approximately 1,000 euros that I got as a loan every month has now turned into more than 60,000 euros of debt in total. Like, oh my God, how did this happen? Like, how did I not really realize what I was doing, right? And so that moment was really unpleasant and very stressful as well. Yeah.
And then eventually, obviously, you decide to inform yourself.
Yeah.
Did you then stop the debt at that point, or like the loan at that point right away? Or
No, not right away. No, because I couldn't. I mean,
Yeah.
especially at that point, I couldn't even work because of my health problem. So I actually was even more reliant at
Right.
that point on like the loan than in like the years before.
Yeah.
But no, I just first focused on my health while also just building knowledge on personal finance, because I did have the time for that. And then when I got better, I then started working again. And then I could eventually like taper off the loan. And then I would say approximately a year and a half after I completely stopped, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what did you do like actively to inform yourself on investing, I guess, or at least personal finance?
Yeah. So I really started at the beginning, like the very, very basics, and also with like very approachable content, I would say.
Yep.
Like very, very low key, very informal, and yeah, I would say leaning more towards the entertainment side than the educational side. And from there on, every time that I heard a specific word that I was like, oh, this sounds interesting, I would just Google. And then like every time, you just broaden your comfort zone of knowledge a little bit more. And that's basically how I got into personal finance, just taking very small steps.
Eventually, you go on to create Skere Student, and to translate, I guess, broke student would be a good translation.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
How did you get started with that?
Well, it was at that point I was already better. I was already working again. And at that time, I realized, because I had been talking with a lot of friends about personal finance, of course, that it wasn't only me that didn't know really what they were doing with their money. It was a lot of people, at least definitely from my friend group, that just also didn't know. And I had a food blog before in the past when I was younger, just with recipes and stuff. And so it wasn't really a big thing for me to start another website. And I just thought, I'll just start it, put some information on there, share a little bit about my own story, and who knows, who I can help, and we'll see,
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started, really, as a passion project.
And obviously, building a community, especially in the beginning, it's very tedious, very time-consuming. Was there anything in particular you did in the beginning to, try and push that as much as possible, or was it just putting out consistent content? Or
yeah, I would say putting out consistent content, but also I started it like literally 2 months before Corona started.
Oh, okay.
So in that sense, Corona, I guess, was good, because it gave me a lot more time to then, use for Skere Student.
Yeah.
And everyone was at home, and also, being on TikTok or on Instagram, or, just looking for things to do or to learn or read about. And yeah, I do think that has helped me in a way.
Right. Investing is often a skill of not getting too caught up in your emotions. And I recall, especially for myself, that when I started with that, this was one of my biggest issues, at least. How was that for you in the beginning, and what are you doing to sort of not get affected by that too much?
Well, I've never really been a daily stock checker.
Yeah.
So I never really log into my investment accounts that much, honestly.
Okay.
It's funny because sometimes, I work out with a group of people, and one of the guys in that group is also into investing. And so sometimes he'll say like, oh, today was such a bad day on the stock market. And I'm just like, oh, really? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. Because I'm just not really investing in that way, I guess.
Yeah.
So I would say,
Is that then also the best advice for those who are trying to start in it?
well, I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the best advice. I mean, first of all, you should, just find out what works for you. And I know some people seem to be very, successful with like really trading and doing daily things and, stuff like that. But that's just never really been my thing. And for me, investing has always been more about the effect that it has and not about the hobby aspect of it.
The whole like financial investment topic in general, in like money in general, doesn't get covered in school at all. Why do you think such an important topic isn't talked about more?
Oh, well, I can go into conspiracy theories now. I mean, I know some people think, there's like a conspiracy theory reason for that. But for me, I honestly don't know. I've never really asked anyone who makes those kinds of decisions. So I also don't know, what their statement on it is. But I think, of course, in a certain curriculum, you have to make choices. And then, of course, you can wonder, why did they leave out the basically money basics? But I don't know.
Do you think that's something they should change?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
If so, what would that concept or curriculum, I guess, in your opinion, look like?
Well, I think it should cover the basics. So that would be like, getting an idea of, what comes in and what goes out every month and how to track that and just kind of working with your money. But I would say also like investing, I think is pretty important. How do payment slips work? How does compound interest work and how can that work for you if you're investing, but also against you if you're, taking out a loan?
Yeah.
So I would say honestly pretty broad, but I think what's actually also really important is that if you start teaching a curriculum about money, is that you have to make it accessible and also relevant to the age of the children that you're teaching it to, because it doesn't really make sense to, start about talking about, for example, investing for your pension with kids that are 12. It's way more interesting and relevant for those kids to talk about, okay, you're probably going to get your first job in a couple of years. What's that going to look like? How are you going to spend or use or save that money that you're going to be earning then? So I would say also really tailor it to the age of the kids that you're trying to teach.
Yeah. Would that then though look like one topic throughout sort of primary school? Well, primary school is maybe a bit ambitious, but like high school and then further education, or is it part of each or like relevant subject, like within economics or something? Or
you mean if it should be like a new class or
exactly?
Well, I don't think it should be a new class. I mean, of course, there's a lot to learn about money, but it's also, you don't need to learn everything about money in school. I mean, like I said, there are also other topics that need to be taught in school. But, in Dutch, we have this class called maatschappijleer, societal knowledge, I guess you could translate it as. And I think, in those kinds of classes, it could be a good addition to incorporate things like that. And I also think that certain topics can be discussed in maths or in economic classes as well. But I do think that if you're going to be incorporating it in maths and in economics classes, that there should be a very, like a kind of distinction that, we're going to be working with compound interest now. but that it's not only about the maths of the compound interest, but that the children actually understand the real life implications.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Not that you get these typical math questions like you buy 300 watermelons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Agreed. What you studied wasn't personal finance, though, right?
No.
But you are continuing full time with this at the moment.
Yes.
Do you regret having studied?
Oh, no, not at all. No.
Because I don't think in your case that would have led you to doing this if you hadn't, right?
Yeah.
Are you planning on doing anything else more towards study-wise, or?
Well, I have been thinking about getting my VFT. I'm not sure what that would translate as. It's like a Dutch thing you can do to get licensed to give financial advice in different fields. So I have been thinking about doing a course in that direction. But for now, I don't really give out advice anyway. And that's also not my plan to go do. So that would really be just for personal development.
Exactly, yeah.
Basically. So yeah, that's definitely something that I've been thinking about doing. But it's not something that's on the top of my mind and that I'm planning on doing within a couple months.
So for anyone that's like trying to start out with investing now, what advice would you give them?
I would say first get like a little a buffer in order, like a little cash on your bank account, just emergency fund, I guess you could call it. And then once you have that, just start. Like literally just start investing. I mean, it sounds so scary, but really, I think the best way is to learn it by doing it. And, just start with small amounts, like maybe 10 to 50 euros, and start with index funds as well. And you can also choose to start investing with letting someone else invest for you.
Right.
And I think that's honestly a really great option for a lot of people who wouldn't otherwise start because they're too scared.
Yeah. Generally, for whatever reason, investing isn't necessarily considered a very sexy topic, and I feel like that's why a lot of people don't get into it. Do you experience that way? I mean, I guess you got into it, but how are you experiencing that process of like convincing people? I guess of why it's important. How do you make it interesting? I think that's also one of the major things why it doesn't get taught in school, because it seems so dry. But
yeah. I think it kind of relates back to the thing that I was saying about teaching the people in schools. You really have to make it relevant for your audience. So for me, when I was trying to teach students about the importance of investing, I was like, okay, what do they need? Like, for example, right now they have a side hustle or a side job where they earn maybe 10 to 15 euros an hour. Well, then I can make, certain calculations, for example, where I show that, okay, if you invest half of your income right now, then that will give you this amount of money in the future.
Yeah.
And if you then like incorporate that in like kind of a catchy video or an interesting blog, and it's not too heavy on like difficult words, but just, easy to understand, I feel like people are actually pretty interested in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You obviously make great use of social media to build out your platform at the moment. I think you once stated in a blog, this is a translation, but it was, this is my tuition debt and I also invest money monthly. I think you received a lot of negative responses on this quote, or a lot. You got some negative response to that.
Yes.
How do you deal with such a response?
Well, Honestly, I think those people are hypocrites. That's as a first. I feel, there were a lot of people that were saying like, oh my God, I can't believe that you're investing right now while you still have your loan open and you haven't paid off your loan. Like, what are you doing? You should pay off your loan first. And, people that felt like it was their taxpayers' money that I was investing with. And I mean, I'm sorry, but no, that's not how it works. So honestly, it kind of depends. Like sometimes people would get like very personal, very aggressive. And like those people I just block because I'm like, I'm not going to let you attack me personally, like in my own space on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, no,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen. But sometimes people come with valid criticisms or questions. And then honestly, it kind of depends. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, that's a valid, or it could be a valid point, but I'm just not really gonna address it because why would I?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, okay, I'll go into discussion with these people. So it depends.
Yeah, because in another podcast I did, we spoke about that social media can be a curious thing because usually the people that respond are either the ones that love what you talk about and agree 100%, or it's like the haters, which is the other extreme side of it. And too often we can't really find this middle mode because that's actually, I think, where the conversation becomes interesting in people who can formulate their disagreement or different thoughts in a sort of non-aggressive and attacking way.
Yeah.
I guess that's almost the toxic part, even though the positive part is nice. Yeah, it wasn't even necessarily a question. It was more of a realizing that there are similarities even there, I guess.
Yeah.
Did these comments, especially in the beginning when starting out to build this community, did that affect you personally at all? Did you struggle with it, or were you right away like, oh, never mind?
I did struggle with it. Yeah, there at one point there were really people in certain chat groups online, and I was in there as well, but under an alias. That were saying like, oh, I'm gonna report her to like the Dutch authorities because she's giving out investment advice, which I wasn't. I never have. And I really want to ruin her. And then another person was also like, oh, you know what? Why don't we just find out where she lives and, go and pay her a visit? And like, especially that part really scared me because I'm like, the chances are super, super slim that someone's actually gonna do it, right? Because, I mean, probably it's just some weird people that are feeling, like on the internet that they can finally have some influence or whatever, and they can say what they want, what they can't in real life. But on the other hand, I'm like, there only needs to be one person that's actually gonna follow through and actually, gonna pay me a visit.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of scary. And so it also did affect me, like, in the way that I make my content, because I've actually stopped making personal content. Like, I barely share anything about my personal financial situation anymore. Like, it's just general information right now, actually. And I do feel that that's a little bit sad. But on the other hand, I come first.
Yeah,
like,
no,
I have
100%,
to, I have to take care of myself first. And if that means that I can't really share anything about my personal situation without getting attacked or, weird threats or stuff like that, then, that's sad, but that's the way it is.
Maybe an extreme hypothetical, but do you think that would be the same if you were a guy?
I think it would be less.
Because that would have been my follow-up question now. How is it in general to be a woman in a predominantly male-dominated industry, I guess? Do you experience anything from that, or?
Well, I mean, as a woman, it's hard to sometimes figure out if something is related to whether you're young, whether you're blonde, you know, whether you're a woman or, you know, not a man, basically. Or that there's something else that makes people not respect you or take you seriously. So I have been, you know, not respected or not taken seriously in various situations, business-wise. But I can't say that that's only because I was a woman. You know, it can also be other things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How do you do? I know I'm somehow curious.
Very politically correct answer, right?
Exactly. No, I get it. I literally don't understand it, right? I'm not in that position, but I can imagine it's extremely like shit. I can't put it better than that. And also, if you question yourself always on this topic of, is this why, you know, I'm not getting this now? Must suck, to be honest.
Well, I mean, you know, I don't really feel it that way. I mean, I just like, I feel like, okay, then next time I'm gonna have to prove myself even more, you know, just,
I'll consider it a challenge then.
Yeah.
That's a good way to spin it, I think. How old are you again?
I'm old. I'm not student age anymore.
Then old enough to have had a quarter life crisis?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because that leads to my question. Obviously, this podcast is called The Quarter Life Crisis. And one of the main reasons why I started it was because I am now done with my master. And I have basically, or have basically no idea what I want to do with my life. Mainly because there are so many paths, so many different roads, opportunities that you can take. So my first question then is, did you have a quarter life crisis?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Why? What did that look like?
Well, it was when my health problems arose, and then also the financial, you know, issue that I found out that I had. And yeah, that like 1.5 years following was a very interesting time in my life. A lot of things changed. Yeah.
And that's, I guess, what led to you eventually developing
also, yes.
student then.
Yeah.
Okay. And as far as this, like, choosing paths go, do you have any advice when it comes to trying to figure out what seems right for you?
Well, honestly, I had a really hard time with that as well. Like when I was doing my bachelor's and also my master's before I got sick, like I was doing a study, but I wasn't really sure if I wanted to go into that field. Then, you know, I decided, okay, I'm going to do something different. I was still not sure if that was really it. And, you know, even though my health problems and financial problems were really not fun, like especially at that point in time, I was very, very stressed. It did make a lot of things clear. It did make me realize what I want to do in life, what's important in life, for me at least.
Was it then necessary?
Well, that's what you can, that's what you can question. I mean, some people say, you know, it's good that you found out this early in life. And, you know, then I think maybe you're right. But if you had said this while I was going through that, I would have been like, oh.
Yeah. And maybe it happens again.
Yeah.
Maybe right now this is good for a couple of years, but it doesn't mean that the path is that one way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I think, you know, it's good to follow your heart, but it's not always easy to find out what your heart actually wants. And so sometimes you need certain experiences to find that out. So I guess I would say just try and experience as many things as you can. And that can be positive experiences as well. And I think that will help with figuring out.
So yes theory. Just saying yes to everything, basically.
Maybe, yes.
Is there anyone in particular that you would consider your inspiration?
Ooh. I don't think so. I mean, there are some people that I find inspiring, but I don't have a role model. And I mean, even though there are people that I find inspiring, I wouldn't necessarily say like, oh, they're my inspiration. Like, I know, I mean, for example, the first person that came to mind was Tony Robbins, but I am not a Tony Robbins fan, but I know a lot of people are, and I can imagine that they would say, Tony Robbins.
Fair enough. Then the last question already. What does the future hold for Emma?
Well, I hope, of course, a very successful Skere Student company. I hope that in my future I've been able to help a lot of students with their finances through Skere Student as well. And I hope to have a lot of happy people surrounding me and good relationships and good health.
Yeah. With that being said, I want to thank you for your time today. I appreciate the input that you give and love the topic as well. I think personal finance is super important, and I'm happy that you are at least making it more understandable and important for students. So thank you for that.
Thank you as well.